All right. Again, as promised, a review of the study guide for the WOA 2014 Fast Pitch. 2014 should be 2024. I got to live in the now. 2024 Fast Pitch 201 Study Test Guide, or Test Study Guide. This is the study guide for the 201 portion of the Fast Pitch Softball Test, as administered by the Washington Officials Association for umpires that are trying to be certified Washington officials in fast pitch softball. This is not valid for slow pitch softball, but just for fast pitch. So here we go. We got 25 questions. Let's walk through all of them. Number one, after 3 contest interruptions for discriminatory behavior, the umpires can terminate the game. So there's a document that the WOA has put out called the discriminatory harassing behavior document. And I scoured that document and looked over. I didn't find anywhere on there that the umpires or the officials have the ability after 3 interruptions to call the game. However, game management can call the game if they can't get it under control. And so, unless there's something in that document that I missed, I'm going to answer false on that one. Definitely look at the discriminatory and harassing behavior document, which spans all sports. Therefore, you won't find it specifically like under softball. You'll just find it on the central hub as a general document that you can look for. And I will answer false to that one. I might be wrong. I didn't see it in that document. Number 2, if the ball goes out of play, the umpire must allow the runners to complete their base running responsibilities before a dead ball appeal can be made. So this question is predicated on the idea that, say, a ball is a hit ground ball to the second baseman fields the ball, throws to first, and it's an overthrow that then goes into a dugout. Well, we have bases we award to people who were running at the time that the throw was made, and but the ball's dead as soon as it goes out. Well, the umpire is going to say these runners get to go to these bases, and before any dead ball appeal can be made, the runners must be allowed to complete their running responsibilities. So the answer to this is true. So if somebody should be rounding first on their way to second and miss first base, the defensive team cannot appeal that, or the umpire will not honor the appeal until after the runner has made it all the way to second and they've completed their running responsibilities. All the runners have. Then they can honor the appeal and call the runner out for missing first. However, should the defensive team be saying, the runner missed first, the runner missed first, the runner may, stop, come back to first, touch it, and then go on to second, and it's completely allowable and the umpire can't do anything about it. They tip their hand too early. The runners must be allowed to complete their base running responsibilities. So that is true. You can find that at 213B2. Question 3. B1 hits a ground ball to F5 and beats the throw to first base. In other words, they got to first base before the throw was caught by the first baseman at first base. However, the runner does not touch the base. Now, fielder 3, we will assume this is the first baseman, catches the ball while in contact with first base, but makes no appeal. So this is an odd situation, but it could happen. The runner should have been safe because they got to the base before the ball got to the first baseman, but they missed first base. Well, because they passed the base, they're considered to have touched it for reasons of appeal, which means that you will call B1 safe because the ball got there too late. The first baseman caught it late. And you will only call the runner out if an appeal is subsequently made In this particular instance, the first baseman didn't make an appeal. There was no indication that they were trying to alert you that the runner missed first base. They would have to do something that indicated they were trying to get the appeal. So initially, with no appeal, all runner B1 safe. It's a very odd, weird sort of incident, and you can read 2:110 for the definition on appeals to get more information. Appeals is a very large section, and it would be good to be very familiar with it, because there's a lot to adjudicate as an official when there are appeals. Question number 4. In the second inning, with 1 out and a runner on first base, the batter hits the ground ball into right field. Ground ball scoots out in between first and second, goes out into right field. Now, as runner number 1 approaches second base, the fielder, F6, fakes a tag, causes R1 to slide into second base. Faking a tag is obstruction. And so the right answer here is going to be C. A fake tag is always obstruction. So obstruction is about, let me grab the actual language here so that we know. But obstruction is an act of the defensive team member that hinders or impedes a batter. So the fake tag caused the runner to slide, hindered them from running on through second base. That is obstruction, and it is always obstruction. So what do you do with obstruction? Well, on obstruction, you award R1 the base you would have received if the obstruction had not occurred. Now this one is only if the obstruction was put into play. So it's a delay dead ball. But if somebody was like, hey, that was obstruction, what are you going to do? This is what you would do. Award R1 the base that she would have reached had the obstruction not occurred. It's not an automatic go to the next base. You can read that in the definition of obstruction at 220, but also the penalty for obstructing here in 843B penalty. Question number 5. With a count of 2 balls and 2 strikes, 2-2, the runner on first base, with a runner on first base, batter number 4 attempts to bunt the ball. The bunt is a pop fly in foul territory. The catcher makes the catch. After the catch, R1 advances safely to second base. In other words, they didn't leave early. They were on the base. Catch is made. They take off. And they get to second base safely. So which of these are in effect or true? B4 is out. Well, there was a pop fly that was caught. So B4 would be out. R1 must return to first base. Nothing says R1 has to return to first base. There was a live ball. Perfectly fine to, take the risk of advancing if you want to. R1 remains at second base. Well, they made it there safely, so they are entitled to second base, which means that A and C are both correct. And here you can see that. 224 is a definition of, let me grab it here. They reordered things. 224 is a definition of foul ball and foul tip. So there you will, by the way, what I'm looking in the rule book. Definition of a foul tip. 823 and effect talks about the runners advancing. But B4 is out and R1 made it safely to second, gets to stay there. Question 6. F1 takes a position on the pitcher's plate with the pivot foot in contact with the pitcher's plate and the non-pivot foot behind it, both within the 24-inch width of the pitcher's plate. All of that description just means that it's legal starting. They're just fine and the feet are fine. It's all legal. F1 takes a sign from the catcher, brings the hands together, then separates the hands while striding forward with the non-pivot foot. Now, when you read the definition of a legal pitch, all of those things are necessary and perfectly legal. F1 then pushes off the pitcher's plate with the pivot foot, loses contact with the ground with both feet, and then lands with both feet as the arm passes through the hip to release the pitch. This is just a description of a legal pitch with both feet leaving the ground, and we now know that that is legal in high school softball. You can have a leap, is what it is technically called, but the player doesn't have to keep one foot in contact with the ground. That is a legal pitch. Reference these rules. 7. During the fourth inning, it is discovered that A23 is playing center field for A12. A23 did not report in as a substitute. Which of the following is true? Now, I do not like this question from the standpoint of it is not told to us whether A23 would otherwise have been a legal substitute had A23 been reported. But we're going to assume that's true, that A23 actually could sub for A12. It just wasn't reported. And in that particular instance, because we don't have an illegal substitute, it was a perfectly fine move. You just didn't tell the umpire. The umpire, the first time it happens, the umpire issues a warning to Team A and then makes the correction in their lineup, and then we play the game. Essentially, no penalty, just a warning. Now, if it happens again, then we start doing some things like if the same player commits the same infraction, then we're going to do some stuff. But on the initial instance that it happens, just a team warning is issued to Team A, and then I wish they would have put there, you've got to correct the lineup. Now you've got to substitute A23 in and make it official in the lineup. And then there's again, I put the note here. Let's assume that it's legal for A23 to sub in, not illegal. Then these things are in play, and D is the right answer. Now, if the actual substitution, A23, is actually illegal, like A23 can't go in for A12, reported or not, just it can't happen. It's not possible. It's not legal. Well, then you have 343 penalty A comes into effect. Now you have a player that's illegal. The player is removed, and the coach is restricted or removed. I forget which, but it's a much more drastic penalty. This is just like everything was fine. They just didn't tell you. Give them a warning, correct the lineup, go on with the game. Number 8, after the lineup cards are accepted at the pregame conference, Team A's coach tells the umpire that the DP will play defense for the flex. The flex is listed as the pitcher. What is this? This is a legal substitution. They gave you a lineup card. It had 10 people in the lineup. 9 batters, one of which is a DP. The 10th player is a flex. Non-batting, but in on the defensive side of the field. Well, that DP and that flex are sort of connected, and we can take the flex out and say, well, the DP is going to do whatever the flex was going to do on defense. And now it's perfectly legal substitution. You would consider it that without getting into more detail about a DP and flex. It's a legal substitution. You will want to look at the rules 313 and 332, specifically subpoint D. Rule number 9 or question 9, all of the following are considered legal provided they fit securely and are made of non-abrasive materials. So we're looking at equipment here, which is a yarmulke, a hijab, or a helmet made of polyethylene foam to prevent concussions. Very specifically in 3, 2, and 5, if you have religious articles or culturally sensitive articles like a yarmulke or a hijab, then those are allowed. They must fit securely. They must be made of non-abrasive material. A helmet made of polyethylene foam to prevent concussions, not legal, not allowed. The team would have to have special permission for a player to wear that. Otherwise, it's just not legal. In this case, and 325 tells you about why these two things are legal. Question 10, if the flex bats for the DP position is eliminated for the remainder of the game. This is false because even though the flex replaces the DP and the DP is removed from the lineup, you can put the DP back in and take the flex back down to the 10th spot. So again, not getting into DP flex in depth, it's not eliminated for the remainder of the game. It's eliminated until the DP comes back. So that's what is false about that statement. Question 11, which of the following is true about re-entry by a flex who has left the game? Again, I don't like this question because there's some details missing out. However, what is true is that the flex may re-enter one time and only in the 10th position in the lineup. Well, the reason that that is true is, A, anytime somebody leaves the game, once they leave the first time, they can be re-entered once. When they leave the game the second time, they're done. They can't come back in. So in this particular case, when the flex went out one time, they can re-enter one time. And the flex is always in the 10th position in the lineup. If they're a flex, they're in position 10. So D is true. Now, what I don't like about this question is that the flex position is not necessarily constrained to a single player. You can actually sub players in for the flex and have a different player being the flex. And it is the player, right? It's either Sarah or Mavis or Geraldine. Each player can come into the game twice. So this question assumes that we haven't subbed anybody for the flex. The natural assumption, but they could be explicit about it. But assuming that the flex hasn't been subbed for this, it's the same player. It's Betty. Well, Betty came out of the game once. Betty can come back in one more time, but as the flex, only in the 10th position. Rule or question 12. Team A has only 10 players and is using the DP flex, which means they're all in the lineup. In the 5th inning, the shortstop, who is neither the DP nor the flex, is injured and unable to continue playing. Which of the following is true? And normally you would bring a sub in for the shortstop and you just put another shortstop out there. But this coach has no subs on the bench. All 10 players are in the lineup. So what happens? You can't move the DP or the flex into that spot because they're already in the lineup and they're already restricted to where they can go. So the game will continue because we're now in the shorthanded rule. So we can go with less than our starting number of players. And Team A may play with 9 defensive players because that's allowable as long as the flex is playing on defense. Any other 8 players can also play, perfectly legal. But when the shortstop comes up to bat, they're going to have to take an out because they have nobody to take that player's place in the lineup. The shortstop comes up to bat. It is an out. Go to the next batter. 338B, where you would solve that or see that. Question 13. The pitcher steps onto the pitcher's plate with both hands together. That's bad. That's illegal. Can't do it. Pauses, rocks back, and delivers a pitch to the batter. What do you have? We have an illegal pitch. Hands must be apart when the pitcher steps onto the pitcher's plate. So it's an illegal pitch. Now, pitcher has to step on the pitcher's plate with the ball in either the glove or the bare hand. The hands have to be separated. Misspelling is in the study guide. So hands have to be separated. This is the definition of what makes it, how it has to be legal, and it's not. It's an illegal pitch. It's not legal, and it's not illegal because of this restriction. It's B. You find that 6-1-1, subnote A. Question 14. The pitcher's pivot foot is in contact with the pitcher's plate, and the non-pivot foot is behind and outside the length of the pitcher's plate. So just say we have our pitcher's plate here, and imagine two lines that go straight out and straight forward, the width of the pitcher's plate. You can't have any foot, one or both, cannot have them outside the width of the pitcher's plate, completely outside. Part or all of the foot has to be within the width of the pitching plate. So this is not legal. It is, in fact, false. It is illegal. It's outside the width of the pitching. Question 15. The pitcher steps onto the pitching plate with her hands together. Again, that is illegal. The plate umpire signals delayed dead ball for the illegal pitch. Good call, umpire. R1 is on first base, a runner, and leaves the base before the release of the ball, leaving early. The look back rule. The base umpire calls dead ball, which is what you always do when somebody leaves early, and then calls R1 out. But because we have an illegal pitch, normally we would say, hey, coach, on an illegal pitch, you can take the result of the play or a ball on the batter. In this particular instance, because the player left early, we actually don't have a pitch. It's a dead ball, no pitch. That person is out early. You will enforce the leaving early, and you will enforce the illegal pitch. They are penalized independently, and you will see that in 8-6-18 penalty, leaving early. So C is correct. The runner is out for leaving early, and there's a ball on the batter because of an illegal pitch. Question 16. It is illegal on a hot day, the pitcher, not in contact with the pitcher's plate, bends over and picks up a partial handful of dirt, throws the dirt down, and moves the ball to her hand without wiping the dirt off on her hand. Is this legal? Is the question. And the answer is true. Dirt has been added to the list of approved substances that can be applied to the ball, and do not need to be wiped off the hand before making contact with the ball. This is true. And a change this year, but it is true. Question 17. With nobody on base and one out, there's a 1-1 count on the batter. It doesn't say a count, but it just says 1-1 out on the batter. And maybe it should say count. I should go look and see if the study guide if the study guide has that in there. But anyway, let me go back to it. The pitcher delivers the pitch and the batter swings and misses for strike 2. The catcher, incorrectly thinking the batter struck out, throws the ball to the third baseman, like toss it around. But it's not the third strike. The umpire rules a ball on the batter for not throwing the ball directly back to the pitcher. And in fact, this is true. The pitcher or the catcher must return the ball directly back to the pitcher. The only time that they don't have to do that is if they're throwing it around after a third strike is called, if they are making a play on the runner. Those are the only two instances they don't have to throw it right back to the pitcher. Otherwise, it's got to go right back to the pitcher. So the umpire ruling that it's a ball on the batter, which is the penalty, is true. By the way, this is rule 632, the penalty, not 633. Question 18. B2 swings, hits the ball. She discards her bat as she runs to first base. The bat roll or the ball rolls into the bat, which is lying in fair territory. So the runner hits, running to first base, drops the bat. The ball is in fair territory, and then the bat is. Then the ball rolls and hits the bat. So what do you have? Interference, non-interference. Well, in this particular case, that is perfectly legal, which makes it a live and fair ball. We got a nothing. Now, what's interesting when you read Rule 7-4-13, that there is a difference between a bat that hits the ball and a ball that hits the bat. And the most obvious difference between those two is the bat has come to rest is just laying on the ground. When it comes to rest, it's just laying on the ground. It essentially becomes part of the field as far as what we're worried about. And then when the ball hits it, it just hit part of the field. It's fair, play on. Now, if the ball should be rolling on fair territory and the runner throws the bat and the bat hits the ball as it lands, that's a different scenario. We actually have interference in and out. In this particular case, it's very clear that the ball rolls into the bat. That's a nothing. It's a live ball, fair ball, play on. Question 19. With less than 2 outs and a runner on third, so we either have no outs or 1 out, the batter intentionally interferes with the catcher as the runner 3 attempts to steal home. The batter is called out for interference, and R3 is returned to third base. Is this correct or incorrect? Well, it's not Rule 8-8 penalty. It's 4-4-4-C2 penalty. Yes, the batter intentionally interferes. We have an immediate dead ball. The batter is called out for interfering, and R3 has to go back to third, does not get to steal home. That's correct ruling. Question 20. B4 swings at a pitch when she tips the catcher's mitt with her bat. The ball is hit into the infield. So we swung, we hit the catcher's mitt as we were swinging through, but still hit the ball, fair territory. B4 reaches first base safely. In other words, the batter gets there. There are no other runners on base. What do we have? Well, as soon as the bat hit the mitt of the catcher, we have a delay dead ball on catcher obstruction. Catcher obstruction is in play until the batter reaches first safely, and there are no other runners, but if there were, they all advance 1 base safely. As soon as they have that, there is no penalty. The catcher obstruction becomes a non-issue. So we had an arm out. Oh, man, can't see it. We had an arm out, and we were ready to call obstruction. Then everybody, made it to the next base safely. Now I just dropped my arm. I've got a nothing. In the last test, in the 2023 test, there was a fourth answer option that was given. There wasn't on this test, at least on the study guide, but I thought, I don't know if that's a typo or if they really did take off this fourth option. But I want to make sure you knew that it was there in case that was a misprint of the study guide. But the correct answer is C, the catcher obstruction is canceled and no option is given. I think. That's 2 L's. I mean, that was the way it is in the study guide. I think that's misspelled. All right. Question 21. R1 is on first base, and a ground ball is hit between the first and second base. R1 is obstructed by the first baseman while leading off. R1 subsequently interferes with the second baseman, attempting to make a play on the ground ball. Offensive coach has delayed dead ball option to take result of the play or penalty for defensive obstruction, resulting in R1 on second and the batter runner on first. This is the correct decision by the umpiring crew. Let me wind that back here for a second. So we've got a runner on first, a ground ball hit to the second baseman. R1, the first baseman gets in the way of the runner. So the runner's obstructed on their way to second. Normally that means once you're obstructed, you can't be put out between those 2 bases. So R1 is normally protected going all the way to second. However, R1 on the way to second interferes with the second baseman. Let's just say runs into the second baseman. That would be interference. So what happens? Do you say, oh, I know they interfered, but they're protected because of obstruction? And the answer is no. Interference supersedes obstruction. So the batter could have done a number of things, but as soon as they interfere, the obstruction is off. The batter is called out for interference. So this ruling to allow the coach to take the result of the play is incorrect, and this is false. This is not the correct decision by the umpiring group. Question 22. With the bases loaded and 2 outs, B6 hits an over-the-fence home run. That, by the way, is a 4-base award. The batter runner gets to go all the way to home and forces ahead every single person, right? It causes them to move. So the runner on first base misses third base. So the runner on first base is forced to second. They touch second, and then they go on to third. They missed third, and they went on to home. Nobody said anything until after all the runners rounded and all of them have made it home and touched home. Then the defense says the runner from first missed third. What is the ruling? So the correct answer is the runner from first base is called out and only 2 of the 4 runs score. Why is that? Well, first of all, when you take a look at these rules, you will find that when somebody misses a base, if the base that they missed was a result of being forced forward, then on appeal, that out doesn't allow any other runs to score. If it's the third out, and in this instance it is, no runs could score if that runner was out on a force. Third out, no run score. However, this is not a force. The first base runner was forced to second, but not forced to third. She just kept going naturally. So what we have is just the third out on the appeal that happens after the runners from third and second have already crossed home. Now, it is the third out, so when that runner is appealed and called out, no subsequent runs can score. Like the home run hitter who is still behind can't still score. So we take away the run from the person who missed the base, got called out, and we take out the run from the runner that was behind that person, because that out is the last out of the inning. In other words, runner from first base is called out. The 2 runs ahead of her score. The one who hit the home run does not score. And you can go through this definition and these rules to check it out. I looked at 864 and it was no help whatsoever. Question 23. Bases loaded, 1 out. B4 hits the ball to F4, who relays it to F6, covering second base. On the play, R3 deliberately and maliciously, 2 very important words, by the way, deliberately and maliciously plows over F6 to break up a possible double play. Now, this is not clean contact. When it is deliberate and malicious, softball is not intended to be an impact sport. You shouldn't be running into each other as part of the game. Whenever people are running into one another, it is either accidental or it is malicious and penalized. So it's not clean contact. They put here between the runner and I think that's catcher, but that should be the player, the second baseman. It's not clean contact. It is a dead ball because you have some interference. However, what do you have? Or a dead ball, the runner is out if the collision occurred before the runner is put out. In other words, when F6 caught the ball, were they touching second? Do we have an out on that force? And then got plowed into before they could get the throw off to first. Well, if it's before the out, then the runner is out. And then because they were trying to break up a double play, you could actually call the next player out. So you could get 2 outs on that one because they would have gotten the double play had they not been interfered. But it is interference. Now, would you eject the runner from the game for the malicious contact? And that is exactly what you could do because malicious contact is unsportsmanlike behavior and you always toss them. They're gone. Malicious is with intent to harm. Malicious contact, we don't put up with it. So B and C are both correct. Question 24. B2 hits a grounder to F6, whose throw to F3 is not in time to retire B2. In other words, B2 made it to first before the ball got there. However, B2, who has not been called out, leaves the baseline and heads for the dugout. Like the runner got there, but the runner thinks they've been put out. So they pass the base, they just circle, and they head to the dugout. They think they're out. So what do you do if the player's not going to go stand on first? And in this case, by rule, when do you say that runner is out? And the runner is out as soon as the runner enters the dugout or dead ball territory. Here's what the rulebook says. Should the player enter dead ball territory and abandon the base to which they are legally entitled, then they are ruled out. This player is legally entitled to first base, made it there safely, but instead decides to go to the dugout, which is dead ball territory. Once you step in that dugout, you are out. And that's it. The player could make it all the way to the dugout and somebody tell them, hey, you're safe, go stand on first. And then they head back to first, perfectly legal, they get to stay on first. As soon as they step into the dugout, then they're out. They have abandoned a base to which they are legally entitled. And last question, number 25. The DP is batting for the pitcher, who is the flex. In the 4th inning, the DP reaches base safely. The coach reports that the flex will replace the DP. In other words, I'm going to send my pitcher out there to run now. Then the coach requests a courtesy runner for the pitcher. Do you allow it or not? This is illegal. You don't allow it. Why? The pitcher did not earn her way on base. She cannot have a courtesy runner. In 895 and 892, it specifically says the pitcher catcher must bat and earn their place on base. We say you got to earn your way on. You can't be subbed in and get it. You have to earn your way on. This pitcher did not. Somebody else did. A non-pitcher actually earned their way on. So once you send a pitcher out there, you can't courtesy run. So C, this is illegal, is the correct answer. All right. Those are the 25 questions. Remember that when you take the test, the order of the questions may change. You will only answer 20 of the 25 questions. And the order of the answers may change and will change on the test. So if you see question 3 on your test, don't assume that C is the right answer because call B1 safe may be in a different position, maybe A or B. Make the answer the one that you indicate. And you should do fine. Hopefully I've led you not astray, and we will see you on the field.